Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Dirtbike magazine video. This time around, we're going to look at a story that Ron Lawson wrote about the life and times of the Suzuki RM250 two-stroke. So let's get into this. The story of the Suzuki RM250 isn't just about a single motorcycle. It's about a dynasty of bikes, championships, and riders that goes back to a glorious era in the history of motocross. 45 years ago, motocross was an obscure European sport. In America, we love flat track and hill climbing. Even in Europe, road racing was a far more popular sport. No one really saw any future in the cult sport of motocross. That is, besides a group of very insightful people at Suzuki. Back in 1965, Suzuki launched a massive development program to build the world's best motocross bike. It wasn't based on market research, computer forecasts, or industrial analysis. It was all about gut instinct and passion. The program came to life through the efforts of Mr. Okano, general manager of research and development, passionate about racing, and for some reason motocross captured their imagination. The first product of the program was the RH66, a prototype 250cc racer with a number of odd features like a crankshaft-mounted clutch. It wasn't very good, and the limited production TM250 that followed wasn't any better. Things didn't really start happening until Suzuki hired the Swede Olle Petersson in 1967 to both develop and race the machine. His first recommendation was for only one change to the existing bike. He told them to throw it away and start over. That set in motion an amazing success story that resulted in a legacy of world championships, beginning with Joël Robert in 1970. Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki were years behind. Even the European makers were stunned. Pedersen's story was amazing, and the product of his efforts were considered the best factory motocrosser of 1970. But for some reason, there was an internal wall at Suzuki between the racing department and the production department. It was almost as if they kept secrets from one another. Thus, Suzuki's head start never translated to an advantage in the bike that Suzuki sold to the public. And the public was going nuts for motocross, especially in America. Suzuki's success with Robert, DeCoster, and many more inspired US riders and fueled a craze to buy a motocross bike. Suzuki failed to capitalize on it. In 1971, the company offered the TM400 Cyclone, which was a poor motorcycle that was unrelated to the bike that Roger DeCoster rode. Soon a 250cc version was offered, but it was based on the TS250 Savage rather than anything that the race team developed. In the meantime, Honda and Yamaha were offering race-ready machines. From 73 to 75, Suzuki's efforts in GP racing basically helped Honda and Yamaha sell motorcycles. Something had to change. In 1975, Suzuki made a commitment to not only improve its production bikes, but to make them worthy of their works bike counterparts. The TM line was abandoned and Suzuki RMs were born. First, a 125 that was half TM and half RM appeared, but in 1976, a pureblood line of RMs was offered, including the RM250A. If you looked at the RM and compared that bike to what carried Joël to his first championship 6 years earlier, it was clear that Suzuki racing and production departments were working together. From that point on, it can honestly be said that there was never a bad bike that carried the RM prefix. The RH70 was the breakthrough bike for Suzuki, carrying Robert to first in the 1970 250 World Championship. Who got third place that year? Funny you should ask. It was none other than Roger DeCoster. Roger was on a CZ that year, but he would join Suzuki the next year to ride the 500 class. Suzuki's 250 championships would continue in Europe. In the US, the works version of the RM only collected 7 250 national titles, with Tony DeStefano, Ken Howerton, Greg Albertine, and Mark Barnett in Supercross. Eventually, its MX legacy climaxed with Ricky Carmichael. But that was only part of the story. The RM made a great off-road bike. The world is traditionally dominated by European bikes like KTM and Husqvarna, but the Suzuki RM250 made its mark there. Between the efforts of Randy Hawkins, Rodney Smith, Steve Hatch, and Paul Edmondson, the RM, or its blood brother, the RMX, captured 16 national championships in GNCC, Enduro, and Hare Scrambles. That's more than any other Japanese motorcycle. The RM and RMX were also incredibly successful for American riders in the ISDE. Rodney Smith came very close to winning the event overall on a RM250 in 1992. 1968, Suzuki released the TM250 in very limited numbers. It was fragile and weird, and it showed a lot of CZ influence, but very similar to the RH66 works bike with a number of expensive magnesium parts. It showed that Suzuki was paying attention to a world that other Japanese manufacturers didn't know existed. In 1971, Suzuki's next try at a production bike was the orange TM400 Cyclone. It earned a reputation as one of the worst handling bikes ever made, a rap that only grew in legend. It was, nonetheless, the only production motocross bike available from a Japanese company. 72 to 73, the TM line grew. The Cyclone was now yellow, just like Roger's bike, and joined by a TM 250 champion, a TM 125 challenger, and TM 100 contender. The 125 and 100 weren't bad. The 250 and 400 were. In 75, the first RM appears in the form of a Suzuki RM125M. It still used a motor from the TM, but the machine was more focused and more competitive, showing a hint of things to come. It had long travel suspension that was considered excellent in its day. It no longer had an oil pump. You had to mix your oil in the gas. In 1976, the true RM line was born. The RM250A was a completely new bike with long travel suspension that was considered to be the best of any production bike available. The 125 and 370 versions were new as well. The RM was on top, but Yamaha wasn't standing still, and competition between the two companies was intense, with Honda joining in later. Updates came quickly, and Suzuki had 3 new versions of the RM250 available over the next 2 years, dubbed the B and C and C2. The RM250 C2 in 1978 got a plastic fuel tank and aluminum swing arm. 1979, this was a big change for the Suzuki RM250. The RM250N was mostly a new bike. Honda and Yamaha had new bikes as well, but the European companies had fallen far behind by this time in the 250 class. In 1981, everything changed with the arrival of the single shock suspension. All 4 Japanese companies offered different configurations, but Suzuki's full floater design was the best. Side note, Suzuki was sued by the original designer of the system. After a lengthy court battle, Suzuki was ordered to pay up based on the number of units sold. 1982, the liquid-cooled RM250 at 1982 reigned supreme as the best 250 of the year. It was faster, lighter, and had better suspension than anything in the class. Honda, Yamaha, and Kawasaki had off years, but recovered quickly. In 1983, the RM250 lost power, and other Japanese companies caught up. Over the next few years, the Suzuki didn't quite keep up with the rapid pace of technological improvement in the motocross world. If there are any dark years in the history of the RM, it's in the mid-80s. In 86, the frame was redesigned, and the rear suspension lost the big rocker arm on top, which was replaced by below the swing arm linkage. The motor lacked throttle response and peak power. In 1987, the suspension was revised again, and the motor got blue paint. But during this period, the RM lost most of its magic. In 1988, Suzuki caught up in a hurry when Bob Hanna became involved with production bike testing. The 1988 RM got a new power valve and redesigned bodywork, and once again, it was best in class. Its strong point was still suspension, but now it had competitive power too. It's in this era that Suzuki also earned the reputation for good cornering ability, and that continues to this day. 1989, Suzuki made the first top-to-bottom change in years. Everything was different, and the bike was excellent. The most significant change was the switch to case reed motor. Another change was the inverted fork. This also marked the arrival of the RMX 250 off-road bike, which was developed with the help of Randy Hawkins. The RMX was very successful, but went almost unchanged for its entire production run of 10 years. In 1993, the RM250 looked completely different, with large shrouds that covered the whole tank. The dirt bike test of the day charged that the bike was essentially the same in performance. This isn't good, because Honda, Kawi, and Yamaha were making fast improvements. Suzuki then entered a short period of mediocrity. In 1996, Roger DeCoster, who had been working full-time as executive editor of Dirtbike magazine, took a job at Suzuki in 95 and pushed for big changes with a short deadline. The result was an all-new bike in 1996. Its wildest feature was the return of a conventional fork. It also had an internal water pump. The bike was excellent, but got a bad rap when McGrath lost his 97 Supercross title in his short tenure at Suzuki. 1999, the inverted fork came back. Suzuki made a few changes to the RM250 in this period. The bike's strong points were suspension, power, and cornering. Its weak points, its excessive weight, and lack of straight line stability. It finished in the middle of most magazine shootouts. In 2001, this was the last big change for the RM250. It got a new frame and bodywork, new engine cases with an external water pump, and new power valve. At this point, the Suzuki was very close to the top of its game. So was Yamaha. In and the two companies battled back and forth for the honor of top bike. Honda's 01 CR was in the hunt too, but then took a step backwards in 2002. 2008, Suzuki and Yamaha at this point are alone among the Japanese 250s. The two of them are basically at a draw. Both have strong points and weak points, but there will be no more progress. Suzuki discontinued the RM in 2009. It was the end of what many consider to be the most successful model run in motocross history from a pure performance point of view. In the used bike market, any used Suzuki RM250 from 01 forward is a good find. The performance got better and better and probably peaked in 05. The earlier models in this period were harder to jet. Most riders just gave up and ran race gas, mixed half with pump gas. By 2005, the jetting issues were sorted out. Suzuki's tend to bring lower prices than Yamahas of the same year, simply because the Yamaha is still in production. Even Honda has higher asking prices for no good reason. The RMs are better in every way. The period of 96 to 2000 is mixed. The RM250 was a good bike, but that internal water pump could leak and was difficult to repair. As with any bike that is over 10 years old, condition is the most important factor, and parts availability is generally very good. Collectors really love old Suzukis. If you find an RM with the original aluminum fuel tank in good condition from 76 to 78, it's like finding a Picasso in the attic. They dented easily and were replaced back in the day with plastic items. So that wraps up a little history article that Ron Lawson wrote on the life and times of the RM250 two-stroke. We hope you like this video. We just want to make it easier for people that don't feel like reading all the time. We have plenty of these stories and more on our website at dirtbikemagazine.com, and we have a lot more videos like this coming down the pipeline. We'll see you down the trail.